yeah, I'm 10, 12 years in, I got 4 MVPs and 4 championships. Like, but do I still want to do this shit? You know what I'm saying?
You know how hard it is.
Some people say, I want to go play baseball.
You think it's funny?
And then I want to come back. Well, some people say, I'm going to go 22 straight. And, you know what I'm saying? So it's a contract I feel like you got to have with yourself, too, in order for you to be a, you know, great.
You know, there's no turn it on here, turn it off here. It's just 110% at all times. So, you know, if I burn out, I burn out.
Pierce had it poked away, stolen by Jordan. Lojas down on the floor. It's loose to Humphries. 4 to shoot. Humphries 3 in it.
You like the idea. Jordan coming up with the steal.
Oh, look at that. The 40-year-old dives to the hardwood.
Garnis Gilmore told me one time, he played for Chicago, he said, if you expect to play a long time in this league, you better quit mopping up the floor. And I thought, well, he's crazy, because that's what basketball is all about.
Bird takes it away from Wilkins. Goes to the floor and gets it. Gets it up ahead.
Charles Barkley finally said out loud what many NBA legends have quietly believed for years, and LeBron James isn't going to like it. Live on television, with millions watching, Barkley stared straight into the camera and flat out declared that Kevin Durant doesn't belong anywhere near the GOAT conversation. Not even close. But here's the part nobody saw coming. This wasn't about numbers, rings, or raw talent. This was about respect. And after what LeBron and KD just said on their podcast, they're about to learn a hard lesson about what happens when you underestimate and mock the wrong legend.
Kevin's a great player. I think that his legacy is complicated. You know, I don't like any guys who join super teams. I'm biased against LeBron when it comes to comparing him to Michael, joining Dwayne and those guys. Because, you know, when we had this debate, and LeBron's amazing and spectacular, but I was like, Michael didn't join anybody. He just kept getting his ass kicked and got bigger and got stronger and finally knocked the wall down. And, you know, Kevin, who's a great player, you know, other than the fact when he joined the Warriors, he hasn't been successful anywhere else. And I don't hold that against him, but he wants to be considered in that list. He's not on that list. He's not on that list. He's a great, great player, but he's not on that list. He wants to be like, wow, he's not in the GOAT conversation, because you're not, plain and simple.
Damn.
You had great success when you joined the Warriors, but not only did you not have success, you actually flamed out in those other places. You got swept last year in the playoffs. You didn't even make the play-in this year.
LeBron James and Steve Nash run a podcast called Mind the Game, where they bring in basketball legends to talk hoops, history, and the mental side of greatness. Recently, their guest was Kevin Durant. 3 all-time superstars, relaxed, joking, sharing stories. Everything felt normal until the conversation turned to longevity. Durant started talking about the mental grind. The sacrifice. The moments when you question whether you still want to keep going. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped a line that changed the tone of the room. Some people say, I want to go play baseball and then come back, Durant said. Others want to go 22 straight years. The room erupted in laughter. LeBron laughed the hardest, like it was the joke of the night. Everyone watching knew exactly who Durant was talking about. Michael Jordan. The man who dominated the NBA, won 3 straight championships, walked away, then came back to win 3 more. Durant was clearly taking a shot at Jordan for stepping away while subtly praising LeBron for playing 22 consecutive seasons without ever leaving the game. And that's where the problem starts. Michael Jordan didn't leave basketball because he got bored. He didn't leave because he lacked commitment. In 1993, Jordan was at the absolute peak of his powers. He had just completed a 3-peat, something only a handful of teams in NBA history have ever done. Then the unthinkable happened. That summer, Jordan's father, James Jordan, was murdered. This wasn't just his dad. This was his best friend. His mentor. The person who believed in him before the world did. The loss shattered him in a way most people can't comprehend. Basketball stopped being basketball. It became unbearable. So when Jordan walked away to play minor league baseball, he wasn't running from the game. He was honoring his father's memory. Baseball was his dad's favorite sport. The game he always dreamed Michael would play professionally. Every swing, every practice, every game Jordan played on that baseball field was for his father. And now, decades later, Kevin Durant casually turned that moment, one of the most painful decisions in sports history, into a punchline. Fans noticed immediately. Social media exploded. People called the comment disrespectful, tone-deaf, and unnecessary. Because joking about someone's grief isn't basketball debutite something else entirely. And here's what made it even more uncomfortable. This wasn't the first time LeBron has taken subtle shots at Michael Jordan and the era he ruled. Not long ago, LeBron made another comment that raised eyebrows when he said, "We done with the 90s." The 90s, the decade that defined basketball greatness. The decade Jordan owned. The era when the NBA became a global phenomenon.
Years ago, I was in the league. I thought you were about to say some shit about the 90s.
Only one of us is in the
we're
league.
done with the 90s.
That team, that 90s bled into the early 2000s.
By saying, "We done with the 90s," LeBron wasn't just making a throwaway comment. He was trying to shift the timeline of greatness, nudging the conversation away from Michael Jordan's era and toward his own. Instead of letting his resume speak for itself, LeBron has increasingly tried to reframe history, subtly suggesting that the legends before him weren't as dominant as people remember. And that's exactly where Charles Barkley enters the picture. Chuck has watched this disrespect build for years. He's seen players dismiss the 90s, downplay Jordan's competition, and act like basketball back then was somehow inferior to today's game. Eventually, he hit his breaking point on national television. During a discussion about Kevin Durant's legacy, Barkley stunned everyone. When asked where Durant ranks among the all-time greats, especially after his struggles in Phoenix, Barkley started calmly, "Kevin's a great player. But I think his legacy is complicated." Then he dropped the hammer. "I don't like any guys who joined super teams," Barkley said. "And I'm biased against LeBron when it comes to comparing him to Michael. Michael didn't join anybody. He just kept getting his butt kicked, got bigger, got stronger, and finally knocked the wall down." That line cut deep because it exposed the fundamental difference between how Jordan approached greatness and how LeBron and Durant pursued it. Jordan was drafted by Chicago and stayed through the hardest years of his career. He ran headfirst into the bad boy Pistons, one of the most brutal teams in NBA history, and got destroyed 3 years in a row. He didn't run. He didn't team up. He went back to the gym, added strength, sharpened his game, and eventually broke through. Barkley wasn't finished. Turning directly to Durant, he said, "Other than when he joined the Warriors, he hasn't been successful anywhere else." That statement hit because it's hard to argue against. Durant came close in Oklahoma City but couldn't finish the job. Then in 2016, he made one of the most controversial moves in sports history, joining a 73-win Warriors team that had just beaten him. Golden State already had a championship. They already had Steph, Clay, and Raymond. They didn't need him. Since leaving the Warriors, the results have spoken loudly. Brooklyn collapsed. Phoenix got swept in 2024, then missed the playoffs in 2025. Despite the hype of another so-called super team, Barkley laid it out bluntly. "You got swept last year. You didn't even make the play-in this year." Then came the final verdict. "If you want to be in the GOAT conversation," Barkley said, "you're not." Plain and simple. So why does this bother LeBron and Kevin Durant so much? Because both of them live in Michael Jordan's shadow, just in different ways. LeBron was crowned the chosen one before he ever played an NBA game, the man destined to surpass Jordan. And while LeBron has had an all-time great career, the comparisons never quite tilt his way. 6 championships versus 4. A perfect 6-0 finals record versus 4 wins and 6 losses. 10 scoring titles versus 1. Every time LeBron closes one gap, another opens. Durant's frustration cuts even deeper. He may be one of the most gifted scorers the game has ever seen, but has never been universally embraced. Fans never forgave the Warriors' move. And no matter how many times he defends those rings, there's always an asterisk attached. Deep down, Durant knows he's not mentioned in the same breath as Jordan, Kobe, or even Steph Curry, so instead of climbing higher, the strategy becomes dragging Jordan down. Barkley saw right through it and issued a warning no one expected. The backlash is coming. Because here's the irony. By creating a culture where it's acceptable to dismiss the legends who came before you, LeBron and Durant are setting themselves up for the exact same treatment. Point: one day, they'll retire. A new generation will grow up never watching them play. Those fans won't have nostalgia, just box scores, lowlight, and hot takes. And they'll say the same things about LeBron that LeBron now says about Jordan. He wasn't that great. He played in a weak era. He needed super teams. That's what Barkley was really defending, not just Michael Jordan, but the integrity of basketball history. You don't get to rewrite the past because it makes you uncomfortable. You don't get to disrespect the legends who built the game just to protect your own legacy. Because eventually, that disrespect comes full circle. And lately, LeBron's behavior suggests he knows it. Launching a podcast to control narratives. Referring to himself as the GOAT instead of letting history decide. Constantly framing his career as a lack of help story despite playing with Wade, Bosh, Kyrie, Love, Anthony Davis, and countless all-stars. All of it points to the same thing: a man less focused on playing basketball and more worried about how he'll be remembered, and moments like laughing at Michael Jordan's tragedy don't help. When you turn a legend's darkest chapter into a punchline, people notice. It chips away at the respect you've spent a lifetime building. That's why this controversy really isn't about one podcast clip. It's about why the 1990s era still demands respect. The 90s weren't just Michael Jordan, though he was unquestionably the king. That decade was Karl Malone and John Stockton grinding for years in Utah, chasing a title the hard way. It was Hakeem Olajuwon ruling the paint. It was Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, and an entire generation of Hall of Famers pushing each other every single night. The competition was brutal. Hand-checking was legal. Perimeter players had to fight for every inch of space. Defenders could be physical in ways that would draw flagrant fouls today. There was no load management, no casual nights off. Stars showed up night after night, playing through injuries that would sideline modern players for weeks. And in the middle of all that, Michael Jordan dominated without ever forming a super team. He didn't call rivals to join forces. He beat them. That's the difference, and that's why his legacy is untouchable. Barkley also dropped a stat that quietly demolishes the LeBron versus Jordan debate. LeBron has scored 30 or more points in 559 games. That's impressive. But Michael Jordan did it 562 times in 8 fewer seasons. 8 fewer seasons. Jordan averaged 30.1 points per game for his entire career. LeBron sits around 27 per game. Jordan wasn't just scoring, he was hunting. Every night, his goal was to break opponents mentally as well as physically. Then there's the finals. Jordan reached the finals 6 times. He won all 6.6 finals MVPs, a perfect record. That isn't luck. That's dominance. LeBron has reached the finals 10 times, an incredible accomplishment. But he's won 4 and lost 6. Every finals loss adds weight to the GOAT debate, whether people like it or not. That's why Charles Barkley went so hard. It wasn't personal. It was about protecting the truth. About making sure basketball history doesn't get twisted to serve someone's ego. Barkley's message was simple: you're great players, but you're not Michael Jordan. And if you keep trying to diminish his legacy to elevate your own, it will backfire. What's wild is how easily all of this could have been avoided. If Durant had praised LeBron's longevity without taking a shot at Jordan, none of this happens. If LeBron had stepped in and said, let's not disrespect MJ, he looks like the bigger man. Instead, they laughed it off like they'd just dropped the hottest take in basketball history. Now they're dealing with the fallout. Here's the reality LeBron and KD have to accept: the GOAT debate isn't about longevity or total points. It's about dominance. About who was most feared, most clutch, most unstoppable when everything was on the line. And it's about respect, for the game and the players who built it in those categories. Michael Jordan still stands alone. That doesn't mean LeBron and Durant aren't all-time greats. They are. But they're not Jordan. And the sooner that's accepted, the better this conversation becomes. Barkley's takedown wasn't about one joke, it was years of frustration boiling over. A Hall of Famer who actually played against Jordan finally saying, enough. You don't get to rewrite history. You don't get to mock legends. And you don't get to disrespect the game just to feel better about where you rank. Basketball needed this moment. Because if every generation tears down the one before it, the sport loses its soul. The game is built on respect. On honoring those who made it what it is today. So what happens next? Do LeBron and KD respond, or do they stay quiet and hope it fades away? One thing is certain, the conversation has shifted. And Charles Barkley reminded everyone that there are still people willing to defend basketball's true history no matter how uncomfortable it makes today's stars. When it comes to respect, legacy, and what it truly means to be the greatest, Michael Jordan remains untouchable. And no podcast joke is ever going to change that.